What's going on, everyone? I'm that Scottish nerd, and Players Cup 4 is continuing on still, so we're having a look at some more competitive decks that you might want to be playing, and in this video we're looking at ADP Zacian specifically. So if you've been enjoying this content and want to see more, be sure to subscribe down below. As always, leave a comment as well, as I do respond to all of the comments. Here we have it. This is my ADP Zacian deck list for the standard format that I've been playing a little bit in the Players Cup 4, and that I would recommend that you play a similar build to this, as you'll see in the matches. If you're somehow uninitiated and not familiar with Arceus Dialga Palkia GX tag team, then this is the card. It is extremely powerful thanks to its GX attack, being able to take additional prize cards as well as deal an additional 30 damage after you use this GX attack. So insanely powerful, and boosting the damage on its ultimate rate attack here so that you can deal 180 as well as attach up to 3 energy from your deck onto your Pokemon. Then to combo with this, of course, we have the Zacian here. We have 4 copies of them with the attack, as we're able to deal 230 damage, but that becomes 260 with our GX attack. And then of course with the Rusted Sword tool card, that becomes 290 damage, so you can completely obliterate every tag team Pokemon in the format and also take 4 prize cards on those Pokemon. So insanely powerful. And to make it even stronger, we do have the Intrepid Sword ability on Zacian, which allows you to draw 3 cards, of course, and if there's any metal energy there, you can attach them straight to Zacian, so fantastic for getting set up. We have included a Mewtwo and Mew GX tag team in order to cover the attacks on ADP and hit for a Psychic weakness, since you can easily knock out the Urshifu VMAXs. Then some of the supporting Pokemon, we have the Mawile here. This can put Pokemon from your opponent's hand straight onto the bench so that you can cancel out any abilities like Dedenne or Crobat, as well as having a reasonable attack here as well. Then we have the 2 copies of Crobat, 2 Dedenne, so that we can aggressively draw through our deck in the early game. And then we also have 1 copy of Eldegoss here for the late game, where we want to recover one of our boss's orders to bring up our opponent's Pokemon, because that is the main thing. You want to bring up Dedennes and Crobats, as I'll talk about once we get into the matches. And the rest of the deck here is extremely focused on consistency, so we have our 4 counts of Professor's Research and Boss's Orders, as well as things like Quick Ball and Switch, as well as of course having our Metal Saucers and Energy Switches, so that we can try and get that turn 1 Altered Creation GX attack. This has been an extremely powerful deck ever since the release of Zacian, and we got all of the Sword and Shield cards, and this remains a powerful deck even today. So we're going to be showing it off in the standard format in the Players Cup 4. If you do like this deck, then be sure to give the video a like, as it really helps me out, as well as just enjoying these matches, because we do have some pretty interesting ones coming up here. So alright, let's get into our first match of this round of the Players Cup 4. Hopefully we hit some good matchups here, but after all, we are playing ADP, so we shouldn't really be bothered about the matchups. All we really care about is getting those bosses' orders and targeting down those Dedennes and Crobats for easy prize cards. We are able to go second here, so let's go ahead and take that opportunity and go second and see what happens. We'll play Super Aggro, since this is a Super Aggro deck. I typically like going first for the most part, just so that I can get an early energy attachment and I don't really have to worry about anything really. But we'll go for the aggro move here and we'll go second, see what happens and see what my opponent is playing. We're starting off with a Mimikyu in my opponent's active spot, which is very interesting. It's the one that prevents healing on benched Pokemon. Certainly the other Mimikyu is a lot more popular, but that one is certainly effective, since you are able to prevent things like Cheryl from happening. So interesting decision from my opponent here. We don't have a whole lot going on here, unfortunately. We do have the Eldegoss and the boss. We are going to have to ditch a Water Energy, which is not ideal in the slightest. And we could also get rid of our Metal Energies. We want to be attaching water, since we can actually accelerate the metals. And yeah, attaching, I guess, water and then using the energy switch at some point if we get it. It's going to be the main thing here. So we'll attach the water onto the Zacian and go for our Professor Research, looking for a ADP, and we don't get it. We don't really get anything here, unfortunately, so thinking I'm going to go for the Dairy Change, see what we get into. We're going to be losing a lot of resources here, but we really have to dig for the ADP. We do have the Mewtwo and we have the Quick Ball, so we can actually grab ourselves the ADP here. And I think we want to get rid of potentially a Zacian. We do have 4 in the deck, so I don't mind getting rid of 1 here. And we can get ourselves an ADP. Unfortunately, we don't have any way of actually getting an attack off this turn. We can move the energy around though, so we'll go for that. Moving the energies onto ADP, and yeah, I think we'll just go for an Intrepid Sword here. Unfortunately not able to get a Saucer or anything, maybe like a Switch, but we have the means to get our GX attack off on this fallen turn, and that is the main thing. We have the Mewtwo as well, depending upon what my opponent is playing. All we've seen is the Snorlax so far. My opponent hits us with the Marnie, so we're going to be losing our Switch as well as the Metal Energy, which is very unfortunate. And also the Mewtwo, of course, in case we needed that. We get into a double Quick Ball plus Metal Energy is actually pretty reasonable, since we can take advantage of the Crobat that we have in our deck. And I did keep the Dedenne in there as well, for exactly this situation, in case we needed to make use of a second Dedenne. And it looks like my opponent is playing a Rapid Strike deck. They have the Urshifu coming down here, as well as the Cinccino, or the Minccino at this point, but it will become a Cinccino. And they are going to be digging with the Dedenne GX of their own, and that is certainly something that we can take easy prize cards on, as I mentioned at the start. My opponent gets an Air Balloon onto the Urshifu, and they're most likely just going to be looking to draw some cards with the Snorlax in the active here. They get down a second Urshifu as well. And really for us, we're looking to get our GX attack off on this turn, and then from there we can start attacking either with Ultimate Ray to power up some Zacians, but ideally we'll want to use our GX attack and then go into a Zacian and take a big knockout on one of these Urshifu here. And as expected, my opponent is going to be using the Gourmandize on the Snorlax, and they have filled the bench, so they aren't able to put down the Zigzagoon that they picked up there. And we did also get into the Professor's Research, so we don't even need to get a Dedenne right here, but we can make use of these Quick Balls to search out another Pokemon. We could always just bin an ADP or a Mobile, since we don't need those right now, but I think getting down another Zacian could be good as well, just so we have the attackers available and on the board. And we'll go for the Professor's Research, looking for a Switch. We don't get a Switch, but we do have the Air Balloon, so we'll have to go for that instead. But unfortunate, as I was really hoping to get something like a Switch and save the tool on Zacian so that we can put a sword on there instead. We do have the Metal Saucer though, so we can at least attach that. And I am going to be going for the GX attack here. Like I said, we're going to be using our Zacians on these coming turns. We do have the double Boss's Orders in our hand, so we could actually just use the Ultimate Ray on this coming turn and take 3 prize cards on that Dedenne GX there. And then from there we should be able to clean up pretty nicely. My opponent does get the Urshifu G-Max, the Rapid Strike Urshifu of course. Been playing with the Cinccino, which is allowing their opponent to draw cards as well as having a lot of options for switching and making use of the Rapid Strike Urshifu's Gale Thrust attack in order to do 150 damage. Looks like they also have the Scoop Up Net here, which is going to remove the Snorlax and free up that bench space, allowing my opponent to put the Zigzagoon down at some point if they so desire. So we have our Metal Energies, like I said, we have our bosses. We are just going to be bossing up the Dedenne, I think. As much as I'd like to be hitting into the Urshifu VMAX, I'm not sure how much good that's actually going to do, because we're going to actually need to take 2 prize cards after this as well. But I suppose it could also be beneficial considering the board state that my opponent has set up at the moment. So I think we'll be attaching to the active either way, and then we should just hold this hand and use Ultimate Ray to attach a bunch of energy onto our Pokemon. So we'll put down a third Zacian. This seems fine, and we will go for the attack. Ultimate Ray dealing 180 damage after our GX attack, and then we can attach some of these energies. We don't really need a water energy anywhere, but I think we can attach one of them onto Dedenne, just so that we have an option for retreating. And we're going to be attaching one onto the Zacian, and one onto the Full Art Zacian, and then one onto the Dedenne as well here, so that we have a host of attackers, and we do still have those metal saucers available. We still have 2 in the deck that we can make use of in order to get some attacks off, but yeah, really unfortunate that we had to lose those metal energies and a bunch of resources so early on in the game. And of course here my opponent is able to easily retreat with the air balloon, and that's going to allow them to deal their Gale Thrust damage. Interesting that they're using the boss's orders, so they're choosing not to get a knockout on our ADP, and instead just dealing damage onto a Zacian with no energy onto it. Now from here we're going to be needing a switch or an air balloon, and we do also have the energy switch that we can make use of here. So I'm going to use boss's orders to bring up the Urshifu on the bench that we damaged already. And then we can't put down the Mewtwo, of course, because we're going to be using Dedenne here. And I do also want to use Energy Switch, I think, potentially. Although I think we could also just hold on to it and use our ADP to attack here, so that we have a bunch of fresh Zacians to attack with. So we use our Daddy Change looking for a switch or an air balloon, and there is the switch indeed. So we can switch into one of our Pokemon. I think we're going to go into the ADP like I mentioned, so that we can protect our Zacians. And we don't really have much else that we want to do here. We can Cherish Ball and grab some Pokemon out of the deck just to thin the deck a little. And we'll also Quick Ball away this ADP since we really don't need it at this point. And we might as well take out a Mawile just in case we need that. And we can also attach our Water Energy onto Dedenne just in case we need to use our energy switch, move it elsewhere. And we'll of course go for the Ultimate Ray. Don't have any energy left in the deck, but we are taking 4 prize cards here, which is a very substantial amount, and we do get an Metal Saucer off of the prize cards. We also get an Energy Spinner, which is certainly not going to be useful at this point, but the Metal Saucer is, and hopefully we can get a Zacian powered up as well as putting a sword onto there. But not as going to make any difference, as we only really need to get a boss in order to win the game at this point. My opponent is hitting us with the reset stamp after using a Bird Keeper, and we draw into a Energy Spinner as well as a Marnie. So not the best of draws. Definitely would have liked to have seen a boss's orders off of the top here. Let's have a look at the discard pile. We have all of our boss's orders in the discard, so that's certainly something to be aware of when you're playing this game. This deck I should say, as you are going to be very aggressive and sometimes you are going to be losing all of your boss's orders like we have here, and this is going to be putting us in a very difficult situation as we don't have any way of recovering them either, since we did have to get rid of our Eldegoss, which means that we don't have any boss's orders available whatsoever. It's going to make picking up our last prize cards extremely difficult, as we're going to have to use 2 Zacians back to back in order to get our prize cards here. Let's see what my opponent goes for. They do have the G-Max Rapid Flow. That's going to take multiple prize cards, so that's 5 prize cards in total, but it leaves my opponent in a somewhat vulnerable position because we have to get a Zacian set up here in order to have multiple Zacians. So let's see what we can make happen. My opponent is building hand size there, but we have the Marnie to combat that, and we have the Energy Spinner that we can just burn here and get rid of, and go for the Marnie to reduce that hand size. Hopefully getting into some good cards here. Really wanted to see the Metal Saucer, but doesn't look like that's going to be an option. Again, just burning the Cherish Ball to get rid of it. We have our Great Capture as well as the Metal Saucers in the deck, and we do have the Dedenne on my opponent's side, so as long as we can draw into the Great Catcher, that is going to be our outs for winning the game right here. So definitely going to be thinning my hand down as much as possible in order to get a whole bunch of draws off of our Crobat here. So I'm actually going to retreat into the other Zacian just so that we can burn the switch, and then we're also going to be playing down the Mobile, see if my opponent has any Pokemon. They do. They also have a boss's orders in their hand. So this is going to be his sketchy turn. We really need the Great Catcher in order to win the game here. Can we draw it? We do. We get the Great Catcher and we have the discard of 2 cards, bringing up the Dedenne on my opponent's side, and that is going to be game for us. Really just finding that Great Catcher was looking sketchy as if we weren't going to find it, but we were able to get there even with getting rid of so many resources, and shows you how powerful aggro ADP Zacian still is in this format. I'll see you in the next game here. Alright, we won the coin flip again, so I guess we're going to go second again since it worked out for us last time. And we certainly don't have, we have an alright start, I'd say. We do have the Mewtwo that we can start off with, which is obviously reasonable with the amount of ball search that we have in our hand, as well as the Dedenne. So it is really going to be a case of making sure that we can find our energy here and see what we can make happen. My opponent starting off with the Stellar Wish Jirachi, and they have the double Spiritomb start. So they're clearly playing a all Spiritomb deck, and they're going to be looking to deal a huge amount of damage with the attack that's on Spiritomb here. So if you're not familiar, Spiritomb does more damage for the amount of damage counters already on itself with its Anguish Cry attack, and it also has the ability on it there which puts damage counters on itself. So very efficient combo and a nice little card overall, I would say. But yeah, we're going to have to move pretty quickly if we want to pull off our GX attack, and certainly pulling off that GX attack is going to be crucial in order to win this game. We can Cherish Ball for our ADP and then immediately get rid of it with a Great Ball, or Quick Ball, not a Great Ball, let's say Quick Ball in this deck. And let's see what we want to grab. I think just another Zacian is honestly going to be fine here. Suppose we could get a other ADP and then also get rid of that with Quick Ball. Sure, why not? We'll go with that. And yeah, get rid of the ADP and grab ourselves another Zacian. And then we can use our Daddy Change in order to discard our hand. We're really looking for our energies. We need a way of discarding them, as well as attaching a water, and it doesn't look like we have it this turn, which is it's a little sketchy, but we can at least attach an energy, I suppose, and see what we're drawing to off of the Marnie. We get to at least protect a boss's orders since we have discarded one already just there. And it doesn't look like we're going to be drawing into a water energy anyway, so we're no chance of getting it, but we can at least use our Intrepid Sword, get a couple more cards here. We do get into a Quick Ball as well as a Marnie, so we should have a pretty reasonable chance of getting a water energy off of the top of our deck in these coming turns. My opponent puts down the Spikemouth Stadium. That also deals damage to a Pokemon when it moves to the bench. So that's a great way for my opponent to get damage onto their Spiritombs, because they can use a whole bunch of cards like Switches and Escape Ropes to get damage onto there. So let's see, my opponent's using the Stellar Wish, and there is a switch, speaking of that. And let's see if they switch into it. No, they're going to use a Scoop Up Net, in fact, to bring in the Jirachi into their hand. They promote the Spiritomb, and we know that they have the switch, so they can switch the Spiritomb back into the bench here, and as you can see, it is going to be taking damage from the Spikemouth. It's going to be a very difficult matchup since my opponent is able to trade favourably, and the fact that we missed a turn of actually being able to use our GX attack and we didn't quite pull it off on the first turn, it's going to be a huge setback for us and going to make this game really tricky. I think if I knew the matchup and I knew what my opponent's deck list was, then I certainly would have chosen to go first in this situation, because going second has given my opponent an extra turn of damage counters and being able to use these switching cards in order to get damage counters into play. So as you can see, my opponent is continuing to build Spite, which is getting those damage counters onto the Spiritombs. They even play down the Oricorio here, which is going to allow them to draw 3 cards if one of their Pokemon gets knocked out. And there is an attack from my opponent dealing 160 damage. We're only going to be able to use this Mewtwo to actually pull off our GX attack. That's it. I don't think we're going to get an ultimate ray off with it, unfortunately. We have a Quick Ball we can make use of and see what we can grab. I think we could get a Mobile out of the deck just to have it to hand, and I suppose we could use it as well. Perhaps my opponent is using something like a Crobat, but no, just a bunch of Bird Keepers as well as the Spikemuth. And we can make use of a Metal Saucer at the very least to put in energy onto our Zacian there. And we're going to have to go for a Marnie, I think. I don't really want to get rid of all of these resources. It's not going to be a great idea overall. And we do have to dig for a Water Energy. At the very least, if we go for the Marnie, we still have the option of using Crobat or Dedenne from here. And oh man, we do have the Energy Spinner, so we can at least get an attack off as we can search for our Water Energy right here with our Energy Spinner. But we don't have a whole lot else going on, which is a bit unfortunate. I think we could also use a Dedenne here. Could be reasonable, so I'm going to attach the Air Balloon onto our Dedenne that we already have. We're going to attach a Sword as well. And then we're going to use a Cherish Ball in order to get out this Dedenne GX. It's going to be a bit rough as we have a bunch of low HP Pokemon like the Dedennes, but at the very least it's meaning that we can get more energies into play. As we can see here, we can use our Quick Ball to discard a Metal. I'm going to actually grab an Eldegoss just so that we have the option here of getting Boss out of the discard pile. And we can use our Energy Switch, which, yeah, I really didn't mean that. I meant to click on the Metal Saucer. Oh man, that's bad. But it's fine, we can just move the Metal Energy over to our other Zacian, I guess, and then start attacking with that one. And I will actually use the Metal Saucer this time to put the energy onto our Zacian. And here we go, we can finally use our Alter Creation GX attack, meaning that we're going to be able to take additional prize cards on my opponent. So let's see what we can do. We are going to have to build up a bunch of Zacians here. We have used 2 Metal Saucers. Yep, we've used 2 Metal Saucers so far. Like I said, really unfortunate that we're going to be missing out on our Ultimate Ray, but we should hopefully be able to get an attachment as well as a couple of Metal Saucers in order to build up a second Zacian. And we do have the Eldegoss, which we can use in order to bring up an Oricorio if we need it. My opponent is being able to use the Spiritombs here as well as that Jinx to move the damage counters over to a different Spiritomb. That's going to keep all of their damage in play. And they are going to be able to get to a point where they can just one-shot our Zacians. So I don't think we're going to have much choice but to have to knock out some of these Spiritombs. If we ignore them and go for 4 prize cards on the Oricorio, not quite sure how well it's going to work out for us, but we'll have to see. I will be promoting the Dedenne here, since it does have the Air Balloon. Makes the most sense to promote that. My opponent is able to take the 3 prize cards on our Mewtwo, of course. And I think if we go for the boss on Oricorio, it's going to prevent them from using its ability to draw cards. We will also pick up 3 prize cards, meaning that we only have to take 2 more knockouts, which is reasonable, although our hand isn't looking too great. And that is the main concern that I have here is our hand, but we haven't actually played any Professor's Research, so we could get some off of the prize cards. I think it's going to be our best bet to go for here, so I'm going to retreat, attach the active, and then use our Eldegoss in order to get the boss's orders, and we'll bring up the Oricorio and get a knockout on Oricorio. Like I said, this way it's going to prevent our opponent from drawing 3 cards going into their turn. They're telling us well played, which is interesting. We do pick up our 3 prize cards here, and there's the Professor's Research, is exactly what I was looking for. And my opponent is going to be able to take a knockout on our Zacian since they can one-hit all of our Pokemon right now. Definitely not ideal as we don't have any more energy in play, and that's the main thing that we're missing here. We really need to get an explosive turn where we can get an attachment as well as a Metal Saucer, but I think it's going to be too late for us at this point, because even once we knock out one of these Spiritombs, we can take 2 prizes on a Spiritomb, but from there my opponent will only have 1 prize card remaining, and they already have all of the damage counters in play that they need in order to get a knockout on any of our Pokemon, which is a bit unfortunate. So yeah, just a series of unfortunate events where we were not able to get set up and we missed a return 1 GX. I think that would have made all the difference if we'd actually got that, so really a big shame that we didn't. And yeah, some of these 1 prize card decks are going to be a struggle for ADP, and really you are able to take advantage of them since you are taking additional prize cards, but for the most part it's going to be a rough time since you are taking fewer prize cards, and especially when you are missing your GX attack like we did, it's not going to be a fun time. We do have our Professor's Research, so we might as well play it out. Like I said, there's no reason not to. We do get our Metal Saucer, so we can attach an energy onto our mobile, and we might as well put our Chaotic Swell into play, as well as Retreat, and we'll go for the attack. Like I said, getting the knockout and taking 2 prize cards, so going down to 1 remaining, but we don't have any means of increasing HP, and even if we did, my opponent has way too many damage counters on their Spiritomb at this point, so they are able to just knock us out and win the game this round. So a bit unfortunate we weren't able to make it all the way in the Players' Cup this round, well, for this ADP and this ticket. Of course I have lots more tickets to get through, but my opponent is going to BM us a bit there. I hate when people do that. Hopefully this still showed off the power of the deck. At least the first match that we got was excellent in taking advantage of Great Catcher and being able to aggressively dig through our deck in order to defeat the Rapid Strike Urshifu. And if you did enjoy this video anyway, leave a like on it as it does help me out, and I'll see you in the next one.